Let's see what Splyce and eUnited are going to do in Game 3. What went wrong for Splyce in that game? Was it simply the healers?
I think they couldn't really just out-persevere the healers. Every single time that a Fire Giant was started by eUnited, those teamfights lasted forever. They would constantly reset and then go back in. The all-in potential from moswal's Chang'e wasn't amplified by the Cerberus in game number 2. And I think taking away the Freya as well out of CycloneSpin's hands helped the United.
It was pretty bruisers-like build for moswal in the mid lane. That's what he's consistently gone to when he plays this Chang'e. Can he really afford to stack up more damage? Maybe not, but maybe that's enough burst damage to chew through. Who knows? All I know is that Splyce is going to try something a little bit different here in Game 3. They ban away the Baron, not letting PVM have that one. I do think that was a huge contributing factor to the problem in that game.
A little bit of control, and on top of that, more healing on top of the 17,000 healing that Benji had. Another about 5,000 to 6,000 coming from your support. Doesn't really hurt at the end of the day, and Freya gonna get locked in yet again. I think CycloneSpin's gonna pop off yet again.
Yeah, he played very, very well with it in Game 1 of this set. We'll see if he can repeat that performance here in Game 3. eUnited first picked Athena the first time in the first game. Now that's banned away, so they pick up Terra instead. This is almost certainly going to PVM, the duo lane.
It has to.
But the Neith as well, really focusing on taking picks away from Splyce that they do like, at least with the Neith.
This makes sense. You remember when PandaCat played Freya after coming back from vacation against Sword Gaming's Jigs?
I do.
He's like having flashbacks. It's like, all right, whatever they did to us, we're going to do to CycloneSpin this game.
Show them how it's done. Oplash and Cerberus. No Artio this time around. Artio with a much, pretty good lane matchup up against Terra, you would think, just because of the cripple, but Cerberus there, as you mentioned, I think Splyce was missing that damage just a little bit.
That's right. That ghastly buff is just so important, especially when you have damage over time from Puch now, reducing some of the healing with his ultimate. It's going to be difficult for eUnited to now give Benji another healer.
I expect an Erlang Shen ban here from eUnited. If you're banning away Cyno and you don't ban Erlang, then I'm surprised, and here I am. Surprised. They ban Ratatosker instead. Something that would have given Splyce a bit of a better start, but they are leaving open that Erlang.
They are, but I think they would rather deal with an Erlang Shen as opposed to a global pressure Ratatasker to be able to dive the backlines. And with Morgan still available, eUnited don't go for it.
Chang'e, interesting. So they try and take a page from Splyce in the way they played that first Game 1. For Splyce here, I imagine it's Erlang and a Warrior for Divios. So it could be a Guardian, could be the Xing or something like that.
Really surprised to see the Chang'e into a Cerberus. That passive is going to start showing its ugly head as the game progresses. And Xing, I love this pickup to limit the double hunters. I think of Sobek, I think of Xing, Osiris, Bologna, to be able to limit that double hunter, and this is a good opportunity to close them out in the late game.
I do like this final Serqet pick for Scream. This is a signature Scream pick. It's very, very good against characters like Freya and like Oplash. Also very good against Erlang Shen. I think that Serqet pick is the reason we see the Rat ban and not the Erlang ban. I think eUnited almost baits Splyce into that selection. But is that enough to get eUnited the victory here in Game 3? Make sure you get your votes in Mixer chat. What about you, Tully? You think that Splyce is going to be able to knock eUnited from the undefeated ranks?
Honestly, I do. This game, I think that they might have a pretty good shot just looking at the draft alone. We'll see what happens in the game, but the healing from eUnited into a Cerberus, into Outwash, I'm not sure about this one.
I do think Splyce had a very good draft. It didn't hurt them before to have 4 magical. We'll see if it hurts them now. It's Game 3 with Finch and Taco coming at you now.
Aggro and Tully, here it is. Game 3, 1-1. Splyce and eUnited, number 2 against number 1. And in that matchup, Benji, as obstinate and stubborn as ever, picks the Chang'e into this Opwash anyway, into the Cerberus anyway, because he's just that much better than you.
This might be considered a little bit of a stretch, Finch, because of how well Splyce have been doing in the fall split. But it does feel like an exact David versus Goliath scenario right now.
I think so.
And Splyce are most definitely David, trying to bring down eUnited and ruin that beautiful undefeated record they've been running for so long.
Can they do it, though? That's the question. I mean, they've got the tools. Cyno is on his signature pick. Divios loves this Xing. It's something he plays all the time. moswal has looked great on the likes of Opwash so far here as well. This is one of those picks he's looked good on, and it's got a great matchup, I would say. Not just into Benji either, but I mean, can Baskin use Unravel if an Undead Surge is out there? I mean, Terra as well. There's a lot of gods that eUnited selected that this Opwash could do good against.
It's the unintentional healing that I think might end up biting eUnited in the butt here, because Chang'e might not always realize which teammates are going to be affected by that proc from moswal that's going to generate the stun off of the heal. So eUnited really just have to watch their timing more than anything else in this game, but that's going to give such a massive advantage to Splyce, because they'll be able to pick the moments that they want, and only those moments.
This is great, though. Baskin forces the beads out from moswal in the middle lane, but he is going to be able to try and sustain back up and stay healthy as Cyno joins him. Looks like red buff should be going to the respective owners, so nothing crazy happening there. It's this middle lane you want to follow up on, where moswal's way more vulnerable.
But eUnited are going to waste their time going to go check that red buff. Scream just now realizing that it's not available. As CycloneSpin and Aror, though, they might not be expecting this level 2 gank here from Scream.
It's a nice low wraparound from Scream. He's being patient, trying to wait for those minions to move up first, but he doesn't see an opportunity, at least not yet. Aror backing up to maybe make this easier. No, Scream does not want this at all. He leaves after lurking in the jungle, and Aror and CycloneSpin can continue going about their day.
CycloneSpin and Aror knew something was fishy with the way that PBM and PandaCat were choosing to play up on the wave. Terra does not bring that much face value for clear, so if PBM and PandaCat are trying to zone the wave at level 2, you could probably bet that Scream's lurking around the corner somewhere.
If they had that game sense, it pays off well, as they were able to avoid the gank coming out from Serqet, who instead heads back to mid lane. And that might even hurt a little bit as Cyno was farming more efficiently during that time where Scream was kind of just watching. In fact, he's forced back. moswal and Cyno find good poke and force Scream back into the jungle.
Nice return damage, though, from Baskin, finding the Spirit Arrow into the weave set on the ground from earlier. But that will be Baskin's Purification Beads, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, in fact, it is. And moswal with all these slows could be problematic. But CycloneSpin, speaking of bead burners, that's going to be another one as Cyclone ends up losing out on his.
Nice from eUnited to be able to force that relic cooldown out from CycloneSpin, and he'll be that much more vulnerable. In fact, Splyce have used every relic except for teleport at this point, so they'll be having to play it a little bit more cautiously. Won't even have the horrific emblem. Meanwhile, Scream, PolarBearMike, and PandaCat all have theirs. We'll see if anything comes from it in the end, or if they'll have a chance to re-get those back up. But so far, nice from eUnited to force their hands.
A lot of traded actives this early on, though, so both teams trying to play it as carefully as possible, but yet it's calculated aggression at the same time, which I can really enjoy. I did want to address something, though, in the drafting stage. It was that Daji ban from Splyce. That's how you know when a team has really done their homework and is also trying to make moswal the star of a composition, because Daji could have posed a slew of issues for this outwash. He's best against mages who don't have that CC immunity in their kits. That way they have to be more mindful about where they place their ultimates or when they choose to push up.
Right.
And I just love it from Splyce.
They did a great job in this picks and ban phase so far. eUnited certainly don't have a weak comp by any means. They've got the double hunter here, and Benji on this Chang'e, if she can make it to the late game unchecked, she certainly can be strong. It's just that you have to worry about how strong this Opwash can be into those healers, and if they can make it work around this pick from moswal or not. Who, remember, was sort of a late adjustment here. They did this just for the fall. Splyce made a big roster swap, and so far it's worked. As Scream actually gets pulled back into the ultimate by the taunt from Cyno. That was too much damage. The knockup came through as well, and moswal working together with the jungler, they find first blood.
And PolarBearMike also just barely managing to survive. That Valkyrie's discretion was putting in some serious damage, but the sprint able to get PolarBearMike out of any further danger. Purple hasn't respawned just yet, but going back to that kill that just took place in mid lane, Finch, Scream just didn't even seem like he knew what hit him.
No, they did a great job locking him down. moswal drops the ultimate before we see any control really come out from Cyno. That way Cyno can go back in and find it actually during the ultimate. In fact, let's just go back and take a look at the play instead of just me describing it back to you again in detail. Let's see the first blood that ends up happening. Cyno is very patient. Yes, Scream jumps in already, gets taunted back, and then there's really no way for him to make it back out of it.
You know what it was? Baskin didn't have a chance to clear out the 2 creeps. Scream was hoping. Actually, hold that thought, though, Scream was hoping to pull Divios back with that last breath and have him put out of position, but to his dismay, Divios is going to be able to avoid all of that from that wind-up charge out of the Xing ult. So an unfortunate missed opportunity and a little bit of a waste there on that last breath.
Benji was willing to invest a little bit in trying to stop the back coming out from Cyno. He does delay it a bit, but in the end, Cyno makes it out, and Divios defends the buff.
But Scream, in that mid lane play, was
Yes.
expecting Baskin to kill at least 1 or 2 more minions. That way, by the time he finished ambushing over the wall, he would have hit level 5 to try and then collapse onto moswal, because between Last Breath and a Spirit Arrow, I think we definitely see the end of an Puch in just a couple of moves there. But just great turnaround from Splyce, and that's a very promising first blood to have.
That just shows, man, how thin these margins are sometimes between victory and defeat, as Cyno puts in a ton of damage on the Scream. The pin lands as well to force out the ambush used defensively, but Cyno is still chasing. He thinks better of it, though. Aror is letting him know PolarBearMike and Baskin are on their way. You might want to rethink it.
They might have been able to keep pushing up against Scream, but it wouldn't have really led much to anything. Baskin doesn't have that World Weaver available. Already tried to use it earlier for a setup kill, and it didn't really pan out in his favor. It's just that eUnited kind of have to sit on their hands and wait until later on. So I really like that Cyno was choosing to play so aggressive against Scream, because Erlang is just going to have a clear power play motive over the Serqet. Warriors, one of the main reasons why we see them so often being brought out into the jungle is because they're so abusable, or able to abuse in the early game.
Well, Last Breath is here this time, and moswal does not have an answer. Deathbane through, and Scream finds the kill onto the Puch. The stun's here for Aror as well, but Baskin not close enough to quite follow up, so Aror will survive, but a nice clean pick from Scream answers back.
That's the wombo combo, by the way, that Scream was looking for the first time around, before he was turned on by Cyno and moswal. A good exchange kill as well, because it puts Scream right back on track. He's still trailing just a little bit behind Cyno in the XP department, but knowing that he can pack that much of a punch against moswal, I think is definitely going to give a little bit more confidence to him.
They're able to find that kill, and Scream absolutely needed it there in the mid lane, so a strong play from him to be able to chase down moswal and punish him there this time. But we've got these two we're keeping our eye on, right? moswal on this Puch and Benji on this Chang'e. I mean, how much would either team need to keep them down for it to be enough, Taco?
No one's going to be in solo lane. We'll see the solo laners at 20 minutes when the team fights break out. And speaking of team fights, Cyno with a great knock-up there onto PandaCat. Beautiful banish, though, from Cyclone's going to prevent any follow-up damage onto Cyno.
So Cyno is able to make it out A-okay, but CycloneSpin has to use the ultimate in order to reposition. Beads come out from PandaCat as well. So he'll be a bit more vulnerable on the back end, whereas CycloneSpin is able to hold on to his. But Scream, still hungry, is lurking in the jungle, trying to find an opportunity. They recognize he's here, though. Pin over the wall. The Undersurge there, too. They drop the ultimate, but there's no one for Scream to try and find. He has to retreat.
Baskin just too low on mana, and the dual lane from eUnited, no chance for PolarBearMike and PandaCat to get involved. They were more focused on clearing out the creep waves instead, understanding that Splyce were not interested in pushing in any further, so their assistance wasn't really needed.
More aggression from eUnited on the left-hand side. A lot of fighting, actually. Surprising that we don't see more bloodshed. It really only claims the relic of PandaCat. Everyone else should be A-okay in the back end. Lots of ultimates used for safety, but not much more coming from that. But you were saying you don't expect there really to be much aggression onto Benji over there in the solo lane. Not at this point.
No, there's just no reason for Cyno to try and waste his time ganking Benji. If he goes for a kill, at the best case scenario, they managed to kill Benji, but the amount of time spent would probably be more than enough for eUnited to look towards the Gold Fury, especially since they have 2 hunters between PandaCat and Baskin. That's so much confirmation that I doubt even moswal would really be able to pose up enough of a threat to sway eUnited to leash that objective.
It would be kind of scary to show too much presence on solo against the double hunter composition in particular. So Splyce are going to be very cautious where they choose to take their engagements at this stage of the game. Benji might not be the call for them instead. So if not there, where would you like to see Cyno try and put his pressure? As we do see Scream on the right side of the map. Divios, though, still has his ultimate available. He has a lot of tools with World Weaver coming out as well. They're trying to lock him down.
Divios might just get CC'd into death here, in fact, trying to drop that ultimate to buy himself a little bit more time, but it's just too much damage too quickly, and Divios never really stood much of a chance with all those ultimates coming at him.
That was a great call there from eUnited and executed very cleanly. I believe they saw Divios use the jump, and that was when they kind of were like, okay, we can definitely pull the trigger here. World River, Cobra's Kiss, Last Breath, just a little bit too much control and not much Divios can do there. And looks like he won't even have teleport when he respawns. He'll have to walk back into lane.
It's an entirely different story as well for eUnited to choose to try and apply some pressure against Divios because they don't have a double hunter composition. It would take Splyce a significantly longer period of time to look to push down that Gold Fury, which is why eUnited can afford to go gank there in the first place. Yeah,
they don't really have the sustained damage that eUnited do at all. That's coming out from Baskin and PandaCat on their side, but they don't even have a hunter over here. It's CycloneSpin on the Freya, moswal on the South Puch. They certainly have good burst and confirm, but maybe not that same shred over time. So Splice might not be nearly as much of a threat for it. But last time they did this, right, that form magical, Cyno was on the Mercury, and there's plenty of burst damage that can come from there. You want to go crit when there's not nearly as much physical protections to worry about. Can Cyno expose that same weakness the same way on the Erlang Shen?
If he goes full damage, possibly. It is a little bit more risk involved, though, with the Erlang, because you do kind of rely on your team to not fall super far behind everywhere else on the map. Divios dying one time, sure, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world for Splyce. He can still recover and stalemate the lane just fine and look to prevent Benji from rotating in super freely.
The stun lands onto Aror, and he is going to be half HP. Banish off the mark. They drop down the Suns as well. Aror gets put into the pound. The CycloneSpin is able to use the ultimate to reposition, but a very nice pick from eUnited. In fact, they drop the ultimate here onto Cyno, and Screammmmm almost dies for that one, trying to trade out with the Erlang Shen.
Needed that just a little bit sooner from moswal, but moswal just couldn't get there in time. Puch, not exactly the speediest mage in the world, but one pick in comparison to what could have possibly been two is still a trade that I'm sure Splyce are willing to take.
They don't get punished too heavily here in that early game by eUnited yet, but they're definitely seeing it happen. eUnited have their foot on the gas, but look at the gold. That's not really too far apart from Splyce eUnited right now. Experience might be a different story because there is about a level and a half difference favoring Benji over Divios. But everywhere else, things are relatively even. Cyno and moswal are a bit ahead, but then PandaCat's a bit ahead too. So 1-to-1, it's relatively even.
Mid and jungle is the core of Splyce's composition, though, for the early game stages. So as long as Cyno and moswal are staying on top of their farm, I think that Splyce can afford to be a little bit behind on both of their side lanes. Cyno's going to have enough pressure and clear potential that they don't really have to worry about eUnited with buff invades. In fact, this might be the lowest amount of buff invades we've ever seen in an SPL set.
There haven't been a ton. There's not a lot of room for eUnited to very safely go in. Scream kind of could on his own, but Cyno's done a good job, I would say, of maintaining pressure, even though he hasn't had a ton of opportunities to actually gank. He's definitely on top of his buff timers. He's definitely representing a threat to Scream if he comes into the jungle. So there's not a whole lot of room for them to move in and steal buffs very quickly and then come back out.
And with eUnited having so much vision, it's really deep vision also, which is probably another reason why we see them playing so far up, because they know exactly where Splyce's every moves are at. Splyce can't really afford to drop sentry wards so deep inside of their own jungle either, because if they do, well, what's to help them with vision on eUnited's turf?
That's right. They might have a bit of trouble trying to afford getting that kind of vision on both sides, so they can't elect for it just yet, as Aror might get caught out again. Stygian Torment does immune the actual ricochet stun, and he's able to leap away. But now that they've burned that ultimate from him, they can start trying to force a fight at the Gold Fury. And it's being burned so quickly. Half HP, Benji finds a two-man stun on the right-hand side to keep moswal away as well. But the Gold Fury's been leashed for now. Earth and Fury comes out. PBM wants this fight to keep going.
But Divios isn't going to be able to actually wrap him up into the clutches of Splyce. Instead, it's going to be Benji, who might have gone a little bit too deep here without the rest of eUnited to assist him.
He absolutely has. He gets stuck inside those crypts, but eUnited grab the Gold Fury in the back end, so they're feeling good. PolarBearMike gets Cyno to make it 1-for-1 in the kill department, but eUnited are the ones with the objective. Now, though, can they make it back out? PolarBearMike has the dash. PandaCat has the stun. moswal is aggressively pushing forward. He has to use Aegis, though, just to try and reposition. eUnited are the ones who can push in.
This could be the turnaround, though. PandaCat without the dive bomb means that he won't have the escape. However, Divios going to get that last spread, trying to get some space between himself and the rest of his team because the poison cannot spread right now as PolarBearMike now looking to chase down Aror.
He knows he has the wall for the stun. PandaCat finds moswal. PBM trying to put in the punches to find Aror, but it's just not enough. But CycloneSpin could certainly end up falling. He's going to step forward and just try and trade, but there's not enough. One more kill comes out for Baskin. PandaCat is an absolute animal, finds the ricochet onto Aror as well. And eUnited now find 4 kills.
Aror definitely thought that he was out of there. No questions asked. And that last second ricochet for the victory. eUnited, it looked like for a second there that they were going to end up wiping after the Gold Fury, but Splyce just come up short in every way possible.
Splyce just couldn't, and it was by the thinnest of margins too. That fight was very close on both sides. A lot of low health bars in both directions, but eUnited are able to very safely get the Gold Fury. And I wonder if they don't commit a little bit too much onto Benji. Yes, they are able to find him on the backside of the fight, but are they able to take the fight on the other end afterwards? As Scream finds a ton of damage with Deathbane onto 2.
But Scream, he doesn't have those beads available. Going to use that last breath, trying to buy himself a little bit more time. But Divios at full health. He's not concerned in the slightest. Scream will end up getting picked off there. But it wasn't for nothing. The whole reason why Scream was trying to distract Splyce in the first place is because they just wanted to get that Pyromancer down.
They at least grabbed the tier 1 on the right-hand side and the Pyro. So you're right, it does kind of come at the cost of Scream's life. But I think eUnited are still okay with this trade. It's sort of like doing a trade when you're the ones that come out on top on the back end. But they want more here. moswal looks like it could be locked down. They use the ultimate to catch out the Opwash, even with the Crips coming out. eUnited have too much lockdown for the Opwash.
Perfect placement of those walls, by the way, from PBM. That's the only reason why moswal stays trapped inside of that corridor to begin with. He didn't have relics, so if he's walks through that way, then he gets stunned down and controlled into his death. If he doesn't, well, we see what just happened. And Divios not going to be able to prevent this T2 tower siege from happening. He'll be evaporated in the mid lane here. But the same could be said for Scream now, because Divios won't be able to defend the T2 tower in mid lane. But Splyce do take out the T2 from eUnited in duo.
That's a huge fight for eUnited. Wow. This is so impressive because Splyce looked so good in Game 1, Taco. And eUnited went back to the drawing board, made the adjustments in Game 2, and then they draft unafraid of moswal's Opwash here in Game 3. And now they have control of 4,000 gold lead, the Tier 2 tower down, and a chance to grab this Fire Giant.
Aror with the Panic Blink also thought that eUnited had already started pulling this Fire Giant. Cyno with a great knock-up there onto Baskin. Stingent Torment's going to come out as well, and all 4 members of eUnited getting wrapped up inside of it.
But they don't quite have the follow-up yet. Cyno's the one that falls, but these Crips are huge. 2 kills come out. CycloneSpin finds 1. Benji gets looped back in for a double kill for CycloneSpin. And just like that, I guess I shouldn't have praised eUnited. I was a little bit preemptive there. Now Fire Giant could be going down for Splyce. It's only PandaCat nearby. He can't do enough. Splyce, grab the objective.
Excellent recognition there from Divios to stop PandaCat from getting anywhere near that Fire Giant. The Ricochet steal is not going to be the case here today. And Splyce, they might have been getting bodied for the past couple of minutes here, Finch, in those team fights. But now, eUnited are going to be the ones having to play from the back foot.
They absolutely are. What a back and forth matchup that ends up working. Let's go back and take a look at that last fight from CycloneSpin's perspective. I believe he was the one that found the double kill. Stygian Torment brings 2 members in Taco, and he's able to just free cast from the back.
Everyone from eUnited was just trying to get away from these Crips, but the slows were just too much to handle. And CycloneSpin made great use of everything that was happening. And you know what it is? It's moswal finally finishing off that Gem of Isolation.
Yeah, it was very obnoxious in that fight. They could not get out of those Crips. But really, for me, that one just comes down to Aror. Aror gets 4 people with the Stygian Torment. And yes, moswal's great with the ult on the back. Yes, CycloneSpin has the damage. But that initial control, and not just Aror, Cyno had a great knock-up too. From Aror and Cyno to keep them controlled, allowed those carries to get in position. And if they get this Gold Fury, this game is essentially tied.
And that's the exact ride that eUnited did not want to have to go for, is that Stingent Torment roller coaster featuring Aror. Speaking of which, Divios bit off a little bit more than he could chew there. Thought he could zone out, but instead eUnited going to get gobbled right up by eUnited.
Yeah, this is a bit of a problem now for Splyce. They've given up a little bit too much on the back end. Divios is the one that falls very early on, thanks to the burst damage from Scream. And instead of a Gold Fury evening this game up for Splyce, now eUnited are going to extend their lead out a little bit further in their direction. Splyce were close for a moment, but maybe a little too close to the sun.
I like it though. eUnited, despite having just lost the Fire Giant, still willing to take up trade-outs against Splyce. They didn't feel as though Divios was going to be that much of an issue and just ran right at him.
And they're right. Divios is still a bit behind. Level 15 on the Xing for support. He's not nearly as tanky, or not a support rather, but a solo laner, excuse me. Not nearly as tanky as what you would expect. Aror gets locked down in CC chain. Spirit Arrow is good for the root, but Divios blinks in aggressively. Cyno's lurking on the right-hand side too, so might be able to find some nice knockups as Divios gets nothing with the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Empty the Crypts comes out, and that forces them back. They might be able to lock down Benji on the right-hand side, which could be huge.
The separation, though, that's what Splyce were waiting for. They were trying to get the members of eUnited to split apart, but
no.
Divios goes a little bit too far ahead one more time. Splyce, they want to chase these members down, but Divios has got to play a little bit more reserved.
He gets a little bit ahead of himself as Cyno goes in aggressively on Baskin. Two-man taunt, lines him up for the shot. CycloneSpin is at the shooting range and knocking him down, but it's PandaCat who answers back onto Aror, making it 2-for-1 overall, and Splyce has got to retreat one more time.
moswal is full health. He's about halfway back to having his ultimate available again. I'm not sure that eUnited really want to keep... Well, actually, the T2 tower is just a little bit too low for comfort. Splyce should not be looking to defend this very actively.
No, it would be very difficult to try and defend this Tier 2. eUnited are going to bring it crumbling down. Reduced to rubble is the Tier 2 on the left-hand side. And I don't know what more you could ask for from a number 1 and number 2 seed. This set has been constantly back and forth. One team swings, the other team swings right back. eUnited, though, on top right now, about 5,000 or so gold in their favor. They don't have the Fire Giant. We're still a minute away from that. But they have a small advantage to try and ride.
Divios was hoping to catch out Benji, but Benji all too ready to just disengage from Divios as the rest of Splyce take note of what's happening over here at the Fire Giant is about to respawn, so Pyromancer, of course, going to be secured by Splyce, so they get that little bit of movement speed bonus benefit coming out of the base. More importantly, though, eUnited, they found some great return sieging against Splyce, despite Splyce having had the Fire Giant. But if Divios plays just a little bit more reserved and mindful of where he actually is at in terms of tankiness to eUnited, I feel as though Splyce will actually be able to work together a little bit better there, because Divios was already at 40%, 30% health by the time the rest of Splyce catches up. So just wait a couple more seconds for the team to be a little bit closer.
And Divios is playing like Divios, which I don't disagree with. The problem is, in this game, he can't play that way, at least not right now. He's still a little bit too far behind in relation to where eUnited are and how much damage they're able to put out. So if he's on the front line the way he normally is, I mean, that far ahead and that alone, then yeah, he's going to get blown up every time. So he's got to be a little bit more mindful, wait on a little bit more experience and gold to come in, and then he can keep playing that way. But right now, he might have to be just a little bit more reserved, as you said, about that timing as he goes in. But eUnited are the ones with the positioning around the Fire Giant. It's back on the map. Cyno gets away from the wall. He's the furthest forward, but all the vision right now feels like it's in eUnited's control. They should know where Splyce are.
And I want to shed some light as well onto this itemization choice from Scream to go for the Malice as that 5th item. Even sold his Assassin's Blessing a little preemptively so he can make sure to finish it off. But this is not the most traditional item on Serqet. Yes, she can make it work, but here, Scream clearly trying to value some of the bonus damage that you can have off of those crits.
If he can find a nice crit, then he'll be doing so much more damage on the back end. He recognizes it, so trying to see if he can find that big setup. eUnited had the Fire Giant rather low, but they end up resetting it. Cyno has the beads forced out. Scream rides along for a moment with the last breath. That is a big ultimate expended, and Cyno, for the most part, is still okay to be in this fight, even at 60%.
2 ults, though, for the price of won Erlang's beats. I think that's a trade that Cyno should be celebrating right now, and Splyce already recognizes it. They're going to try to contest eUnited here on this next Fire Giant, which is at 30% by the way.
PolarBearMike drops Earth and Fury. Divios is shredded up front, but so is Benji in response. He gets locked down, and CycloneSpin happy to grab him. The Whirlwind Rage and Steel is good to slow down Scream, and he ends up falling to Aror, and the damage from moswal as well. Divios this time is a perfect bait for Splyce, and eUnited bite off more than they can chew.
It's not as comforting as you might have originally believed though, Finch, because Splyce, despite not losing anybody in that trade, Divios and Aror were just a little bit too low for comfort, so they're going to end up having to back to base, but eUnited still have around 30 seconds or so until Benji and Screammmmm respawn, so this should realistically be Splyce pulling the gold or the Fire Giant and walking away with it.
We'll see if they want to try and start it up. They've got all 5 members here now, Taco. And PandaCat, PolarBearMike, and Baskin are all that eUnited have to try and stop the big objective from going down. Fire Giant has been pulled. Ultimate available for Baskin if he wants to try and drop that World Weaver, but they're stacking up the corpses. They'll have plenty of confirm. PandaCat zoned away. Divios actually throws Baskin towards the objective, but they've got too much damage. Splyce confirmed the Fire Giant. Divios confirms Baskin up down with the root. PandaCat enters back to Vine as he takes him down, but finally gets shut down.
But that's both of the carries from eUnited dead. Without their hunters, I'm not sure that anybody else is going to be able to stay standing, and PolarBearMike just going to prove that to be true as he'll end up joining both Baskin and PandaCat back in the fountain. And now this base defense has to come down to Scream and Benji, respectively.
But this game continues to swing back and forth like a pendulum. It was eUnited for a moment, but it swung back in Splyce's favor. They grab the tier 2 tower on the right-hand side. They can even threaten this Phoenix. Only Benji and Scream to defend. Benji does have the Waxing Moon, a big ultimate to try and force them back, but the Phoenix has already been shredded. Splyce grab the Firebird and have opened up a win condition if they can win a couple more fights.
Even if Benji had utilized the Waxing Moon there, it wouldn't have led to much of anything. In fact, it probably would have just prompted eUnited to play more aggressively even and look to try and collapse onto Benji and Scream alongside of taking the Phoenix for free. So it's just for the best sometimes, even when you do have a way to slow down the opponent on those Phoenix sieges, to just play it safe and play it back. All Benji and Scream, their primary duty in that situation was to just not die.
They do a good job, though, of making sure they don't give anything up. If Benji and Scream do die, Splyce might just keep going for the end in that game. But look at these charts. That's what I'm talking about. You can see the almost roller coaster that's starting to be created in those graphs because it's been so back and forth between these two teams. Up until now in fall, eUnited, not only have they been the top team, but it hasn't looked particularly close between them. But Splyce are taking it all the way up to the edge. They are giving eUnited everything they can handle here in this game.
Splyce are forcing eUnited to pay attention to them, essentially, and around every turn, right when it looks as though eUnited's about to have the match back in their favor, Splyce just immediately answer back, and I could say vice versa as well in this instance, because even with Splyce having the Fire Giant on 4 members, they had the Fire Giant last time on everybody, and Divios ended up dying alongside of just about everyone else from Splyce.
Well, now Splyce are going to look for a little bit more of a push. They have another minute and a half here, Taco, to try and make it work. I do want to point out, PandaCat having an excellent game so far. 9-1-4, top of the player damage charts. We saw him get shut down on that last Fire Giant siege, the first time he died this whole game. They have not been able to isolate this Hu Yi very well, and PandaCat's been making great use of it so far.
It's just his positioning. He's so far back that he's able to avoid the slows from moswal as well as that anti-heal proc from moswal, so PandaCat can afford to just play a little bit further back. It's unlike Baskin, who I think has been taking up the more aggressive stance between the two of them.
That's right. It's kind of benefiting Baskin at this point, but that's what makes eUnited so strong, right? Either one of them could pose enough of a threat to just outright win games. So even if you slow down Baskin, PandaCat can go off as moswal drops the crits on the first part of the Phoenix. They're able to push right on through. They haven't gotten much Phoenix damage yet as Sunbreaker forces them all away. You may have one big AoE ability, but so do I. And eUnited forced them out, at least for a moment, but now Splyce are back.
This is such a slow Phoenix push, though, from Splyce. They don't have a whole lot of damage for the Phoenix, but they got plenty for Benji in store as CycloneSpin will make quick work of Benji.
Big taunt. comes out from Cyno as well. That sets up some more damage. PolarBearMike in a little bit of trouble. CycloneSpin finds a double kill. Aror will die to the Phoenix shot, and PandaCat grabs credit. But now Splyce have no space to grab this mid-Phoenix, but Scream doesn't want to let it happen. He jumps into the back line, but no one's there to help Baskin. Cyno finds him. 4 up against 2. Only Scream and PandaCat to try and defend.
Wait, Divios has teleport. Divios is going to come back in at full
He is,
health here.
to award.
Splyce, they had the opportunity to ward. All they're waiting on is Divios, and there's going to be a wave with him.
And Scream's been caught out as well. They get him with the banish, but it's not enough. Splyce are going to go for the win. Splyce are going to try and take the set over eUnited. The Titans getting chunked. They drop down the ultimate as well from moswal, and eUnited finally fall to Splyce. Number 2 are showing up.
And the undefeated streak
Wow.
is officially over, courtesy of Splyce. Talk about a set, Finch, because I don't think anybody would have seen that one coming.
No, that is a tough one to call. Splyce win game 1, they win game 3, they take the set over eUnited, and I can't stress enough, Taco, how much this was heads up, toe-to-toe smite from them, and they were just the better team today.
It was so much fun, too, because game 1, obviously Splyce.
Yeah.
Game 2, obviously eUnited. And then game 3, smack dab in the middle for both teams.
Absolutely.
So much as well on the line here for Splyce, but this is a huge set victory for them to have overcome.
And this is so important because now I think what we can say at this point is that Splyce are the clear number 2, right? For a while, it was Splyce and Space Station, which won. I don't think that's the conversation anymore. Now it's eUnited and Splyce, and which one of these two teams are going to be the strongest from North America, and who from this team is going to be your MVP? Get your vote in now while you can.
It's not over just yet, though, for Space Station. They still have a couple of last hopes, which it leads up to that Week 6 matchup again, or
Sure,
the rematch
that's right. They still have to play.
for
Oh, my
Splyce
goodness.
and Space Station. So that's going to be sparks certainly bound to fly in that set, but I believe that Space Station also have another set that they have to overcome, and if they confirm the win on that one, then it's all going to come down to that Splyce versus Space Station set at the end.
That's another big set to look at as far as the standings go, but Splyce certainly earned a big name for themselves here in this set. Let's get it back over to the desk to get their thoughts.
eUnited undefeated, no more.
Wow.
Splyce able to put a loss in the column for eUnited for the first time all split. Anyone has done that over a set. How did Splyce do it, Tully?
Honestly, it was a great ultimate from Aror at that 18-minute mark because it looked like eUnited was almost guaranteed to secure that Fire Giant, and it was just a lot of AoE damage between moswal's Puch, also Divios doing a great job using the ultimate at the right timing when Benji's dance wasn't available to immune him from that situation.
Yep.
And on top of the Xing from Divios, yet again, the Cerberus from Aror, every single time you got pancake flip, there goes these paralyzing spit doing so much damage.
Man, tell you what, both ADCs put on a show in this game, 17-2 for CycloneSpin and PandaCat combined, but ultimately it's Splyce and it's Cyno sure earning MVP. This Erlang Shen, man, we were talking about it during picks and bans. I'm surprised that eUnited gave it away. And like I said, I think that the idea was that we get the Serqet, we shut down the healing, we make it easy to kill him during the early game. But during these late game team fights, it's unrealistic to expect the Serqet to come at you with that ultimate every time, and it ultimately became way too much for eUnited to handle.
Yeah, like look at the control here. Getting caught right outside the edge of that tier 2 tower. Cyno able to clean up from what Divios was bringing to the table. That Xing so important against these double hunters. CycloneSpin wasn't even able to escape, just running at him.
Man, really impressive stuff from Cyno and the rest of Splyce. And now this doesn't guarantee them to go to HRX because it doesn't guarantee them top 2. Let's take a look at the standings and see where they sit. They still have 2 games remaining. Next week, it's against Space Station Gaming. If they win that, they're in.
Pretty much.
Top 2. And against Trifecta. So if Space Station don't end up beating CLG here, I believe that also would all but confirm Splyce as long as they found at least one victory, plus minus, weird, but
yeah.
Beat Trifecta next week, Splyce is in a great spot.
Splyce at its worst can finish 6-4. Space Station at their best can finish 7-3. So Space Station still in it.
Still in it so far. We'll see if Space Station can get it done. Don't know the other team that Space Station plays next week, but that's also very critical if they end up beating CLG right here. And right here is where we're going to go. It's Space Station versus CLG. You'll be right back right as we get ready to bring you that set.